Whether you are a sci-fi geek or scoff at this entire genre, there is a guarantee that you will have heard of Dracula, the notorious killer of young girls and official ancestor of vampires like Edward Cullen and Damon Salvatore. It is also likely that you have fast dismissed the creature as a mythological being. Unlearn what you think you know, as there may be substantial historic proof that Dracula actually existed in all his bloody glory. So who really was this guy who was horrifying enough to inspire a monster that has lived on for centuries? Well, his name alone is more terrifying than all the modern-day vampires combined. He was Vlad the Impaler. And soon you will find out exactly why this name is not just a wacky title, but was very well earned through actions that forced entire armies to turn away in horror. Also, I know what you're thinking. Wasn't he supposed to be named, Dracula? Actually, the way he received this particular title will seem pretty vanilla compared to all of the horror that is to come. Basically, Vlad's father, Vlad II, joined the Order of the Dragon, a knightly order which was designed to fight the Ottoman Empire and received the title Dracul, meaning the devil or the dragon. Vlad soon became known as son of Dracul, which turned into the name Dracula. In fact, Bram Stoker, the original creator of Dracula, was well aware of this part of history. As for the life of the real Dracula, he was born in the 15th century, possibly in Transylvania, which is the famous, hauntingly beautiful residence of Count Dracula. Now, it is often said that nobody is born evil, and the future horrors that Vlad would inflict on the world were simply a reaction of his freak show of a life. Perhaps it would have been true had he stayed in his own war-torn kingdom during his most influential years. In fact, our pal Vlad was soon captured by the Turks to make sure his father behaved himself in the war. The Turks actually educated him in history, philosophy, and sportsmanship. He was treated kindly, especially considering that there was no Geneva Convention at the time to ensure kind treatment to war hostages. He repaid them very generously by leading many decades' worth of war against the Turks. Vlad stepped to the throne of Wallachia after his father was murdered and his older brother's eyes were burnt out and was burned alive. His great publicity act was the abolishment of the annual tribute paid to the Ottoman Sultan as peace gesture. This solidified his anti-Ottoman position. However, war had left Wallachia's nobility in chaos. They engaged in constant bickering, and really not in a cute, flirty way. More like, you killed my farmer, I'll kill 10 of yours away. Vlad, who was clearly mentally stable, decided to invite them all to a quaint little dinner party, and then very rationally stabbed them when they challenged his authority. Sort of like what happened to Caesar, but in reverse. A woodwork from 1499 depicts Vlad dining amongst twitching, impaled corpses, while being completely at ease and not at all offset by the stench or the sight. Instead, he really embraced the situation and dipped his bread in blood. Even then, he was not satisfied with his influence and went on to burn down an entire village of German settlers. And he, of course, lived up to his name and impaled every single person present, even the women and children. This was the beginning of Dracula's bloodthirsty, war-ravaged rule. The following tales of horror come straight from the people of Vlad's time, as pamphlets were published to inform the public about his dealings. These were in fact compiled by a monk in a book named Tales of the Dracula. And so the story continues. Vlad the Impaler was so very pleased with his phenomenal dinner party and the after-party fire show that he decided to pay a visit to merchants of Saxon who were allies of the Wallachian nobility. Again, there was a whole lot of impaling that took place. At the same time, a group of Ottoman envoys came to visit him and refused to remove their turbans as they were a part of their religious identity. Vlad, while acting supremely petty, said, "Congrats on your devotion," and then nailed the turbans to their heads. That either makes him insane, as killing an envoy was considered a full-blown declaration of war, or a sadistic criminal. This was not a three-time occurrence. Vlad made a habit of leaving impaled bodies, still half alive and writhing in agony for days wherever he went. This is actually a form of psychological warfare. When Mehmet, the Ottoman Sultan, invaded the capital of Wallachia, he found the entire city deserted and all the prisoners of war impaled in plain view. The sight and stench alone made the entire fleet of the Ottoman army turn away. Vlad used to convey the rank of the impaled person through spear length. Longer spear equals higher rank. Yep, he really is making the fictional Dracula seem like a pretty nice guy. In fact, even the Vatican, who are currently murdering anyone who slightly offended them, condemned his unbound cruelty. Yes, the same people who had burned Joan of Arc for dressing like a man. Imagine how terrible you have to be to disturb the 15th century Vatican. Not long after he impaled the prisoners of war in the capital of Wallachia, Vlad was exiled to Hungary, where he had a merry time and even got married. In 1476, he reclaimed his throne once more. Now, there are only so many times you can lead expeditions against a bigger nation before they annihilate you. Being a disastrous example of persistence, Vlad decided to try once more and was ambushed and beheaded. His head was displayed in Constantinople as a symbol of victory. So fortunately, unlike Bram Stoker's monster, Vlad III the Impaler, alias Dracula, could be killed. By the end of his tumultuous and disturbing rule, he had killed 80,000 people and impaled 20,000. Since our brains cannot accurately imagine what a huge number that is, consider this. According to United States Census Bureau, Troy in Michigan has the population of 50,000 people approximately. Really, if you murdered the entire city of Troy, you would have less blood on your hands than Vlad. Still a lot of blood though, so don't do that.